Is it time to panic? Maybe, maybe not. One thing we do know, the Bills are a bit of a mess right now, dropping 2 games in a row. I'm Kevin Carroll. Welcome to the Buffalo End Zone podcast, along with Andy Young on the road in Atlanta for this one.
Yeah, this was not pretty from a Buffalo Bills perspective. Welcome to Atlanta. Yeah, Bijan Robinson and Drake London welcomed the Bills to Atlanta in a harsh, harsh way because this game was ugly from start to finish for the Bills, defensively, offensively, penalties, all the things that have been talked about so much leading into this. They reared their ugly head once again as the Bills dropped to 4-2 and now no longer in first place in the AFC East. That belongs to the Patriots.
Yeah, it's been a while, Andy. Talk about Bijan Robinson. We knew he'd be a handful. He's a handful for a lot of teams out there, Andy, and tackling has been suspect for the Bills, and we saw a lot of that in the first half, Andy, where I have in my notes here, Bijan, 138 yards rushing in the first half alone.
Just not good enough at any level of the defense in stopping the run, especially there in the first half. Bijan Robinson is, as advertised, one of the best running backs in the league, incredibly dynamic, both running the ball and receiving. He put up 238 yards of total offense by himself, 170 yards rushing. He goes for explosive runs, had an 81-yard touchdown run. Also did 68 yards of damage in the passing game. So you knew going into this game that the key to stopping the Falcons was trying to stop Bijan Robinson. They didn't do it in any phase. Second half, defense, of course, much better. But overall, gap sound defense not there, tackling not there at the second level, guys not filling the lanes properly. It is just an ongoing problem for this Bills defense, and I don't know whether it's the players, the overall scheme. Do they need to blow things up that way? Is it the play calling on game days from Bobby Babich? I mean, all of that now with the bye week here needs to be up for discussion because this defense simply not good enough, and I think both sides of the ball really were problematic here, but we'll start with the defense because that's the low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, we'll just dive into that. We talk about Drake London. You brought him up earlier. Bills held the Falcons to 3 points in the second half.
Yeah,
the
it's
Falcons,
much better in the second half.
The Falcons could have had 28 points in the first half, albeit Drake London by like an inch just stepped out of bounds. We were looking at a possible big touchdown there at the end. London ends up finishing with 158 yards receiving, and the bulk of that coming in the first half as well, like Robinson on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, look, they had 2 players you had to worry about in this game. That was Bijan Robinson and Drake London. We just talked about what Bijan Robinson did. Drake London, 10 catches on 16 targets. Every time that Michael Penix Jr. needed to make a big play, he was able to find Drake London. And it goes to show what a very good top 10 pick wide receiver can do for a team that doesn't have a whole lot of other weapons. I mean, Kyle Pitts, 3 catches. Tyler Algier, 1 catch. That's it. That was the bulk of their pass catchers in this game, besides Bijan Robinson, who had 6 catches. So there were a couple of times where the Falcons got bailed out by some suspect defensive pass interference calls. I think one was called early on Trey White that probably would have got them on the field on third down. Another one where Drake London basically bowled his way into Christian Benford downfield, and then Benford gets called for DPI. But overall, Bills can't stop anything. They don't stop the run. They don't stop the pass. And against teams that have a really good pass catcher and a really good rusher, as my light just went out here, joy, kind of like the lights going out on the Bills tonight.
Hey, my IFB fell out of my ear during the show after the game.
Yeah. Thank goodness for auto iris and auto color balance cameras on a MacBook. But in any case, yeah. I mean, just where do you go from here with the Bills defense? Like, yes, I understand that they got things corrected in the second half, but they're in such a bad hole in the first half. It's hard to dig out of that. I understand you only gave up 3 points. You blocked a field goal. That was huge by Greg Rousseau. But overall, I don't know what the answer is. I mean, Terrell Bernard gets hurt. Cole Bishop gets hurt. Benford was banged up for a bit. Milano's out. Daquan Jones gets hurt right before the game starts during warm-ups. He popped a calf, apparently. We saw him in a walking boot after the game. I don't know what popped a calf means. Is that a torn calf? Is that a strain? Like, what is that? So that's problematic. And you were already down TJ Sanders. So the injuries pile up, and the players who are on the field just aren't making enough plays throughout the course of the game. Look, I don't want to dog them out completely because they did play better defensively in the second half, but that first half, I mean, they put up basically a whole game's worth of stats in one half.
Yeah, and Andy, talk about a crazy start to the game. And we're talking fundamentals and maybe sloppy play. First play of the game, there's a fumble, and the Bills recover it. And that could have changed the whole way this game played, but there was a defensive offsides. Later in the game, defensive offsides when it might have been Joey Bosa, I'm not sure, came up with a big sack of Michael Penix Jr. down inside the 5-yard line. That ends up becoming a first down. The defense kept doing it to themselves throughout that entire first half, and we often talk about not being able to get off the field on 3rd and 4th down. The penalties were just adding to that.
Yeah, I mean, and it's been a bugaboo, and I don't know if we want to say it's uncharacteristic for Sean McDermott teams, because there have been stretches where they are penalized fairly heavily. But, I mean, in this game, 8 penalties for 64 yards, and they come at just really inopportune times, right? Like, a lot of times on offense, it happens when they're driving, and then a nice play gets wiped out. And on defense, when they think they can get off the field, procedural penalties have to drive a coach crazy, right? Lining up offsides. McDermott said it. We go over that. We police it. We flag it during practice, and it still shows up in the game. That stuff kills you. But to me, besides the penalties, they've got problems at every single level of the defense. I don't know where you go from here. Is it the players? Is it the play calling? Is it the scheme? I keep going back to this. Like, there's going to be some really tough questions this week about Bobby Babich. Does Sean McDermott potentially take over play calling? I don't know. He probably liked the way they came around in the second half, but you can't give up that first half. Okay, so then it's not Bobby Babich. All right, let's go to then the players on the field. Well, if they're not good enough, they're not good enough, right? And then that goes to, players that Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane and the scouting department target and try to develop. It's just not there right now.
Yeah, and part of the problem on defense, Andy, continues to be not being able to get to the quarterback. I thought they did a better job of that in this game than we've seen for a while. I don't think Penix is that mobile of a quarterback that can get out of situations like we saw with Drake May the week before and other quarterbacks that they've gone up against. But still, there still remains that level of close but no cigar when it comes to getting to the quarterback with this defense.
Yeah, 2 sacks in this one. Oliver had a sack. Javon Solomon had a sack. And I think they did a decent job pressuring, again, a lot of the times. I can recall one play where Rousseau on a sequence had back-to-back pressures, and then the one ended up in a sack. But overall, not enough affecting the quarterback at the most important times. And then, like, the back end of the defense, like, what kind of confidence do you have right now in the safeties? And what kind of confidence do you have right now in Tre'Davious White? I mean, it's just really problematic. I thought Cole Bishop struggled in this game again, missed tackles. And people will look back at the film. I'll try to take a look at it this week on the bye week as well myself to get a better feel for some of those things. But, I mean, Bishop goes out, Poyer comes in. Is it a case where maybe Poyer can push for taking a starting job from one of those guys? I think everything should be on the table.
We heard a lot from McDermott over the past couple of weeks about the defensive line working with the defensive backfield in order to make that defense complete, and I don't think we're seeing that at all still.
No. Even when there is a little bit of pressure or the defensive front is doing its job, there's just wide open holes in the zone defense. And I don't know how you easily correct that, right? Linebackers not getting enough depth or making the plays on the ball. For so long, the Bills have feasted on bend but don't break. We might give up some, but we're going to make the big play. We're going to get a turnover, those kinds of things. And that's just not happening right now. I harken back to last week where there was one pass breakup the entire game. That just is your secondary not having an impact on the football game. And I think they were better at that today. There were a few pass breakups. I can think of several that were key in this game. I think Taron Johnson had a big one. There were some other ones. Christian Benford may have had one as well. But I think overall there's just not enough of that. Not enough impactful plays from players on the defense.
I will say this, though, Andy. 24 points. If the Bills' offense is clicking like it's supposed to be clicking, they should be winning games like this 30-24. You know, the offense praised for being able to put up 30 points at will no matter what was out there has just seemed to have disappeared right now. Josh Allen, 2 touchdowns, but 2 more interceptions. You go back 3 games ago, and we're talking about Allen's streak of not throwing an interception, and now it's a weekly occurrence.
Yeah, he's got 4 interceptions in 3 games. And I think he's pressing a little bit. He's just not able to find anything. And we started with the defense, and I think that's smart because that's how this game started, with the defense playing horribly. What's more concerning, because I think we've all kind of thought the defense was not very good, is the offense and its regression. And the everybody eats thing is just simply not working. And Dalton Kincaid, who's been probably their most effective offensive weapon of anyone not named Josh Allen or James Cook this season, doesn't play in this game. And then your leading receiver in this game with 2 catches for 60 yards was Joshua Palmer, who basically only played a quarter.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those catches was for 46 yards on the opening drive. And they just have nothing downfield. So when Allen drops back, there's nobody open. There's nothing in rhythm. Very rarely. Receivers don't get enough separation. And we've talked a lot about everybody eats for 2 years now. Ever since Diggs left, ever since Gabe Davis left, and who has now come back. We'll probably get to that point several times over the next few weeks, whether Gabe Davis, once he's healthy, should be back on the active roster. They've got to do something there because they're just, for the second year in a row, we've reached a point where teams are absolutely not afraid to be beaten by the Bills wide receivers. And when you have the NFL's MVP, it's almost malpractice to not give him more help in that regard. I know you bank on the running game. Well, it took a long time in this game for James Cook to get going, and by that time, you're down 2 scores, and it's hard to get back into it. Second half, he had a nice stretch of runs on that touchdown drive that ended in a Ray Davis touchdown, but it's just a lot of head-scratching things going on right now.
That offensive line, they had their hands full, clearly, in this one. We knew the Falcons' defense was legit, but they seemed to be all up in Allen's business throughout the entire game, aside from those 2 touchdown drives at the beginning of the game and at the beginning of the second half.
Yeah, and the Bills knew it coming into this game. The Falcons love to pressure and blitz. You got to have the guys and the play calls to deal with that. Your offensive line can't block more guys than they have, right? So if the Falcons are sending tons of pressure, you've got to be able to have guys to win one-on-one matchups or play calls that exploit that. And the Bills did neither of those things in this game, outside of that one deep pass, and then Allen had a couple of nice throws at certain points. But there's just nothing there for them offensively in the receiving core right now. Khalil Shakir, he's a fine player, but he had 33 yards in this game, right? Keon Coleman, where is he?
Right.
He did next to nothing. They throw these 50-50 back shoulder balls. I don't think they're even 50-50 plays because right now he's not really coming down with them all that often. Mm-hmm. That's just not a workable play. Elijah Moore, where was he in this game other than fumbling a jet sweep?
Another jet sweep that gets fumbled.
Yeah, I
That one also coming off Rousseau blocking that field goal, and the Bills are in business. And on 3rd and 2, I get it. I get Josh Allen saying after the game, well, if that play works, it's a different story, but it didn't work. And it didn't work last week when you did it with Dawson Knox. And it's becoming one of those plays that is just it's got to be annoying as a fan to see them go to that. Sean McDermott called it too cute a week ago. Joe Brady
bristled at it.
Yeah, defending it, and yet here we are again, and it's driving you nuts. I said during the post-game show that it's like Joe Brady's trying to force the point that play is a good play. They were doing it with bubble screens with wide receivers all of last year that kept getting blown up until they stopped doing it. Like, I think that is the 3rd time they ran that play over the last 2 games. I think they ran it again against the Patriots last week. I think they ran it twice.
Look, I don't have a problem with that specific play being in your offense that gets used sometimes. Lots of teams run that play. Lots of teams are successful at it. Where I have a problem in this game specifically was that situation. Like you said, you're coming off a blocked field goal. Big chance to swing things the other way and go down and score and tie the game. You've got 3rd and 2. You've got Josh Allen and James Cook, and you don't use either one of those guys. Let them either tush push for twice or run it and then tush push, whatever it might be. Get the ball in the hands of your best players. Yes, I understand if it works, it's great. Well, if I had wings, I could fly, right? Like, it didn't work, and I don't have wings, and I definitely can't fly.
I think that's how that saying goes, yeah.
Yes.
My whole thing is, when you bring it up, like, wasn't there a time when in that situation they just rolled Josh out, and if he can't get the first down, he looks for someone open down the field? Like, where has that gone?
Well, and it's funny you bring that up. On the 4th and 3 play, that's what they were trying to do. So the 4th and 3 that they did not convert at, I believe it was the Falcons' 47-yard line, they go a little play action. Josh rolls left. He's trying to go to Ty Johnson out there, and he's getting pressured, and Josh decides to flip it instead of kind of turning, cocking back, and getting a good throw, and the ball falls short of Ty Johnson. So they were trying that play, and that didn't work. That wasn't executed well because they were under heavy duress, and Allen simply didn't make a good play there. Whether he had time to turn his hips because he's rolling to his left, that's a tough play for a right-handed quarterback. But at the same time, I mean, for a guy we call Superman so often, you hope that he can turn and make that throw better than he did. So, yeah, I've been critical. Where are the throws to James Cook that aren't just dump downs, right? Designed plays for these guys that are better in space, since you obviously are having trouble winning outside. You got to scheme open some ways to get other people involved and open in the passing game, because Sean McDermott said it. Allen didn't play well. He didn't say that. I'm saying that. But Sean McDermott said it was too hard. It was too hard on our quarterback tonight. And I think that is a big point of emphasis that needs to be made. Why are they making it so hard on their MVP? Is it because they don't have the horses or the right play calling? It's probably a little of both.
Play calling, to me, Andy, is a big thing. With what you sometimes you have to accept what you have is what you have. You have a bunch of wide receivers that can't get separation, aren't going to be burners down the field. Even like big catches that were made, like the Atlanta defensive backs were on top of these wide receivers within a second, it seemed like, for most of the game. So I think it's on Joe Brady to start to do stuff that benefits what the talent is he has out there. And if it means smarter play calling, and I don't mean trick plays, I don't mean anything like that, but scheming ways to get those guys open, guys like Shakir and Cook who could do stuff after the catch.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they have to do, because they don't have anyone who strikes fear in opponents down the field. Now, we saw that open up finally a little bit with Joshua Palmer, and that was the hope that he could be your separator. Now he's banged up, so we'll see where that goes going into the bye week here. Like for the team, I get it. It's fine to say, all right, we got to deal with what we have, but we can also discuss whether they needed to do more to supplement this offense in the offseason. Now, a lot of people thought, all right, Amari Cooper out, Mac Hollins out, Joshua Palmer in, Elijah Moore in. In theory, that should have been an upgrade. So far, that hasn't played out that way, and you need more from Keon, right? Like, you got to unlock something there, and that's looking real suspect, especially when you have Dalton Kincaid out, who's finally emerging as a reliable target after a really down second season that was injury plagued. Well, then without him, they just had nothing. They had no threats, and you could see that the Falcons were not afraid of it at all.
Yeah, absolutely. Andy, a lot of chatter on social media about James Cook not being on the field on third down. We also heard that a lot during the post-game. Questions come up to Sean McDermott. He said, well, we're going to look into that over the bye week. So take that for what it's worth. But you have one of the more Bijan Robinsons out there when the Falcons need him. James Cook should be out there on these third and short plays.
Yeah, and it's funny because remember the damage that Ty Johnson did last season in the passing game? That is why people thought, all right, James Cook doesn't need to be out there on third downs because Ty Johnson, who Josh Allen called one of the best or the best third down running back in the NFL, was making a ton of plays. Well, that's not happening this year. They're also not getting Cook out there and designed pass plays for him. Think about that Miami game last year where they ran some phantom motion with, I believe it was Shakir, and then Cook comes back across the grain and Allen hits him wide open and he goes for a touchdown. Where is that kind of stuff this season? You just haven't seen it. And it just looks like it has several times during this era of Bills football where when it's rolling and they're getting the running game going and Allen's rolling, it looks great. But when it's not, it looks just so hard for the Bills to generate offense and score points. At some point, you can't just rely on yak and yards after catch and those things to make up explosive plays for you because those are hard to get, and it's not happening for a lot of guys right now. But Brady's got to figure out a way, because you're right, Kevin. Drake London isn't walking through that door, right? Stephon Diggs of 3 years ago isn't walking through that door. So unless they make some dramatic trade for a wide receiver, which, by the by, they also have problems on defense that they need to explore looking at trades too.
Right.
They've got to figure out a way to, like you said, exploit the resources they have somehow.
So let's try and be positive. At this time, about this time last year, the same situation was going on, and the Bills managed to right the ship, rip off a bunch of wins. So the possibility is there. Do you feel it's more dire this year, though, at this point with what we're seeing? Because, I mean, last year, you know, they were beating early. They were beating teams that they should beat and had a couple of duds against two of, at the time, the better teams in the league with the Ravens and the Texans. This seems like the wins have all been struggles, aside from the Jets. And the losses are making it clear that this team might not be all it was cracked up to be. Andy, look back. If the Bills don't have that amazing comeback opening weekend and end up beating the Ravens, they're in pretty tough shape right now.
Yeah, they would be sitting here probably at 3-3, right? And maybe not even in a playoff spot. I kind of feel the same last year as I do this year. Like, I think if you went back and listened to this podcast after the Ravens game and then the Houston game, a lot of these same talking points happened, and they figured it out. They made the trade for Amari Cooper. The defense kind of stiffened up, and they went on a run. They've got a bye coming up at a decent time right now because they're so banged up and injured. like Deion Dawkins said, Joey Bosa said it too. You're not going to win every game. You're going to have stretches of bad football. You would hope that, what if they came in here and just lost a really tight game to Atlanta? Like, both sides played well and they lost, 27-24 on a late field goal or something, right? And you don't feel like you got your doors blown off in the first half. You'd feel a lot better about things. That, all right, you lose some close games from time to time, right? This doesn't feel like that. But I think it does feel pretty similar to last season. I do have some confidence that they can get it turned around. But I worry so much about all levels of the defense, and I really worry about their weapons offensively.
We talk about possibly bringing in a wide receiver, cornerback. You mentioned issues on the defense, too. Another situation there, with the trade deadline approaching, Andy, I do think the Bills have to do something again. I mean, I'm leaning on getting Josh Allen a weapon on offense that can really make a difference. And we thought with Amari Cooper last year that was going to be the trick, and then Amari Cooper got banged up and whatnot, and, did have a few splash moments for the Bills. But I think the Bills are going to have to do that again. I don't think what they're putting out there with, like you said, the reigning league MVP is enough to get the job done.
It doesn't seem like it right now, and I do think Brandon Beane will make a trade of some kind, whether you can bring in someone that's impactful enough to make a real difference. Like, think about 2 years ago when they brought in Rasul Douglas. That actually did work. He played pretty well for them that season, right? Before they ultimately lost in the divisional round to the Chiefs. He wasn't as good the second year, but it got them through after Trey White went down for the second time. Rasul Douglas got them through that for a third-round pick. Last year, Amari Cooper had some flashes, but overall just wasn't enough. Do you need to make a huge swing, right? Do you say, all right, let's trade a second-round pick or a first-round pick for a wide receiver? I'm not against it.
I think we're at that point. I'll agree with you on that. I think we're at that point.
Like, I don't know if the Eagles would do this, but if A.J. Brown is disgruntled, would you trade a second and a fifth for A.J. Brown if you're the Bills?
Yeah. That could be the difference maker. That could be from flaming out early in the playoffs to actually getting to the Super Bowl.
Right.
There's a talent like that.
I'm not saying the Eagles would even want to do that, but I've heard some talk online about him being unhappy and maybe him being a trade candidate. To me, you don't trade away really talented players when you're like the Eagles in a Super Bowl run too, because there's going to be points where they use him and need him. But I mean, I don't know. Find a lousy team and see what you can do, because what's going on right now isn't good enough, and who knows what happens with these injuries. I mean, you've got to, while you're in this window, you can say, oh, we want to stay relevant for years to come, but you only have so many cracks at it with Josh Allen in his prime.
I was going to say exactly that, Andy. It's the reason why you pull the trigger on something big now is where you are with Josh Allen coming off an MVP season. The window is open there for you to win a Super Bowl or multiple Super Bowls, but you just have to go all in, And I said going into this season that I get concerned with the Bills coming close but not getting there year after year, that eventually you're going to hit a season where things will just spiral out of control, and you're going to kind of have to go back to maybe not square one, but kind of reevaluate everything you've got, because you're no longer on the edge of getting to the Super Bowl. You're actually regressing.
Think about, too, I think the last couple of draft classes for the Bills have really kind of not panned out yet, and it's really hurt them. When you think about Keon Coleman last year, Cole Bishop, Dwayne Carter, like, they're just not getting a ton out of all of these guys. And then this year, obviously Maxwell Harrison gets hurt. There's nothing you can do about that. TJ Sanders, now hurt. Who knows how long he's going to be on the shelf with knee surgery. Deion Walker is fine. Like, he's had some big plays. I think he's been a bright spot. But he's a rookie and he's inconsistent. So Sean McDermott was asked about Deion Walker making big plays tonight, and then he brought up how you've got to be more gap sound. So obviously some of the stuff that was happening in the run game was probably Deion Walker not being where he was supposed to be, even though as outside observers we see flashes where he makes a play in the backfield or a big run stuff. And then, like, Landon Jackson's not doing much of anything yet. Jackson Hawes was a flash in the pan for a moment there, and so you're not getting a ton out of these classes. Look at last season: Keon Coleman, Cole Bishop, Dwayne Carter, Ray Davis, Cedric Van Pran Granger, Ulofoshio, Solomon, Grable, Hardy, and Clayton. None of those guys are stars for you there, and you're not always going to get stars when you're talking about late round draft picks that they are, late first round where the Bills keep on picking, but it's hurting them right now.
Mm-hmm.
And you got Hairston, you've got Sanders, these different guys that just aren't getting there. Jackson, Deion Walker, we talked about him. Hawes, Hancock hasn't done much yet, hasn't gotten a lot of chance. So for a team that excuse me, had to reset a little bit because of the salary cap and get contributions from young guys, it's just not panning out right now.
And what was the biggest thing that gave the Bills the biggest jump? Is the year they got Stephon Diggs, who was, as Brandon Beane put it at the time, their first round pick, to come in, and he did. He brought the Bills to that next level. So they pass up on a draft pick there. They bring in Diggs, and the team improves by leaps and bounds. Maybe they need to do that again.
Right, but that was an off-season trade.
No, I understand that.
That's so much harder to do mid-season.
Right, but something bold, if you can do it, needs to be done.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything needs to be on the table right now.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Whether you're just discussing coordinators, whether you're discussing trades, whether you're discussing sitting down players that aren't playing well and giving somebody else a shot. And look, 4-2, world's not ending. Like Deion Dawkins said, we were going to dovetail into positives, I thought.
We started to.
Yeah, I think with Allen, with Cook, you're going to have a chance. I think McDermott generally has done a good job of pulling these teams out of these situations. But, your little prediction at the beginning of the year that this was going to be a tough sled and they were going to make the playoffs, but it wasn't going to be easy, maybe that's coming to fruition now.
Yeah, that's what I fear. It just, like, after you kick the door so many times to try and get to the Super Bowl, inevitably there's going to be, at some point, you just can't get through the door unless you really do something.
Right. And then the other hard part is when you're so close and you're really, really good, nobody who's an observer or a fan of the Bills wants to see them have a losing season or drop down to 500 and be picking in the top half of the draft. So that's why you might have to make a bold move to get those type of impact players, because right now they don't have – remember we talked about this. McDermott said it himself. You need 3 or 4 difference makers on both sides of the ball to be a really, really elite Super Bowl winning team, and I don't see enough of those guys right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Bye week coming up now, Andy. So the Bills will get a chance to rest up, heal up, maybe get healthier. You got players coming in off the suspension list that can show up now. And then you get back to action with a team you should easily be able to beat in the Carolina Panthers.
Well, and Carolina just beat Dallas. So maybe, I mean, not that Dallas is amazing, but I think they're pretty good. So maybe that's not as easy as you think. I do think the Hoyt and Ogunjobi returns obviously are huge, because those are 2 spots where they're struggling a little bit, especially on defensive tackle, to get guys back in the mix. And maybe Hoyt can inject a little more finishing to the pass rush. We'll see. This is not a guy who's been a star in the league, so to expect that is asking a bit much. But I think the more good players you have, that's going to be helpful.
Yep, looking forward to that. So We're going to be off this week. Andy and I will return with the next Buffalo End Zone podcast coming up a week from Wednesday as the Bills start to return to action against the Carolina Panthers. For Andy Young, I'm Kevin Carroll. As always, thanks for joining us, everyone.